I'm Randy Reed, and we're here at Lux Live, and I am with Peter Earle, the Business Development Manager of Philips OEM. Peter, welcome.
Thank you, Randy. Nice to meet you.
And Peter, tell us a little bit about some of the new technologies with batteries.
Okay, so if you're in the emergency industry, you will hear lots of debate around lithium type batteries, okay, which is being mentioned as the latest technology that we should be using in lighting in these safety systems. So I think that we should keep an open mind to these new technologies, Randy. The reason being is that lithium battery technology is moving very fast in terms of development and what it can do. There are specific chemistries that will work well in lighting. So I think we're on the right track. I think we need to take an open approach, and I think we need to be ready for some dynamic movements in the market in the coming months and years.
So when I hear lithium ion, I think of Samsung phones exploding. Is that the same technology?
It's the same base technology indeed, yeah. Okay. So lithium batteries, there are several hundred different variants of lithium batteries, I think, Randy. Okay. So the different chemistries and makeups of these batteries are applicable to different applications. So whether it's in an aeroplane, the Dreamliner, whether it's in a phone or a laptop, or in the lighting system, in the ceiling. Your phone's being used every day. The lighting in an emergency situation hopefully will never get used. But you want it to be ready when that does need to be used. So we need to be looking at these chemistries with an open mind. Some of them won't be suitable and aren't suitable for use in a ceiling. Others will be. So I wouldn't be too worried about those stories of things catching fire and burning. I think whoever brings these things to the market, you would hope would do their due diligence. But you know, things do go wrong. Like
so the advantages of lithium ion is long life, is that right?
Long life and power density, you know, how much power it can store over a period of time. And in lighting, you do need that battery to hold power over a long period of time before it's being used. It also holds its charge well, lithium, so it doesn't discharge while it's sitting in the ceiling as quickly as some of the other technologies. So that's one of the benefits of. So
we would not have to test as much.
Oh, you do need to test because there are regulations around testing, Randy. So you need to comply with those regulations and make sure that your systems are working. But in terms of the battery, then you end up with actually longer life. You know, a longer real useful life of that battery. Some of the other benefits I think of lithium would be things like parasitic power. So because they hold their power longer, you don't need to charge them up as often. You give them a trickle charge to keep them at optimal charge at any given point when they might be needed to provide emergency lighting. So there's some benefits there.
So Philips does a lot with emergency lighting, but you're still not relatively well known in emergency lighting. Why is that, and what are you doing to fix it?
Indeed, and that's true. Funnily enough, though, in North America, there's a division, Bodine, indeed.
They're the best.
They're the market leader. They've been around for 60 years. So in the rest of the world, we only really launched an emergency proposition 5 years ago, after some years of research and development. So it's a newish portfolio, but Philips, has been working with battery technologies for decades. Critical care, health tech type machines, indeed. Rechargeable toothbrushes, not lighting, but using battery technology. So within the business, over the years, we've built up that knowledge. Now, in lighting, we're bringing some of that lighting electronics expertise, some of the battery expertise, our understanding of the industry and our position there, and we're bringing now a portfolio called Trust Sight. That's our brand for the rest of the world outside of the North American, Bodine. So that's the product portfolio that we've launched. That's the element that I was talking about today in my presentation at Lux. And they're the solutions that you'll hear us talking about more and more. But even in the past, Philips drivers, in the old days, fluorescent and ballasts, right? We called it fluorescent lamp and a ballast.
Right, I remember them well.
Indeed. So those ballasts, those Philips ballasts, had a DC emergency feature. So if there was a central battery system and the mains failed, that driver itself, or that ballast or gear, would detect that failure and then deliver DC power to the light source. Same in our titanium LED drivers, the same thing. That feature exists. So In the UK, it's not well known because we don't have so many central battery systems. It's more of a self-contained luminaire with a battery inside. That's where really we're relatively new to this market. But we're bringing all of that expertise, as I mentioned, to play.
So what are some of the new technologies outside of batteries in the emergency market?
Well, every time I have a conversation about converting an emergency luminaire, then the conversation moves on to Internet of Things and connected.
Okay, yes.
So that's one element. We don't know what that's going to be yet. It's going to be something. Really, there's lots of things going on here at Lux. Everybody has a viewpoint, but that we're still early days. Nobody knows where the connected thing's going to go, but you have to be ready, and we're in it as Philips. We're seeing also things like, we had a dreadful event earlier this year in London, a tragedy where some safety systems failed. That has meant that safety systems, including lighting, are now moving up the agenda for the industry and outside of the industry. So things like self-test, auto-test, knowing that your system is compliant.
But isn't auto-test the key? Because then you're not dependent upon someone doing it.
I think it's part of the key, but that's an education challenge as well. Because I know that you can get a fire certificate if you ask the right people for your building, whether you test them or not. That's unfortunate, but that's the way of the world. If you do a self-test, you switch it off yourself and you check it, okay. Auto-test and self-test is definitely the way it would go. And the standards, by the way, are reflecting that. So the latest release of BS 5266 mentions things like that, like self-test and auto-test, along with things like stay-put lighting. A non-emergency situation where you stay in the building. Well, you need more light than just running down the corridor because you're going to stay there. How does the system cope and adapt to that? And what do we, as component technology suppliers, what do we then need to provide, and what functionality does that need to provide to deliver those perhaps more adaptive systems? That takes us right back to the connected and Internet of Things question. How can that Internet of Things thing help us with these adaptive technologies going forward?
The whole stay-put lighting thing I find fascinating, and it is a little bit outside the box to think about, okay, 5 years from now, where will emergency lighting be?
We're going to debate that this afternoon, actually, in a panel here at the Escape Zone, Randy. I think it's going to be a mix of all of those things. So it's going to be auto-testing, ensuring compliance. It's going to be health checks of the system to make sure that the batteries are working, and if not, something needs to be done, and you get a report that shows that. I think these systems will use historical data, and there's going to be masses of data, right? I mean, tons and tons. Somebody's going to need to manage that. Where's that data going to go?
Right.
But
the system, who owns the data?
Who owns the data? What about general data protection regulation? What about personally identifiable information? Who owns it? Who manages it? Who takes responsibility? These are questions that we're debating. But I think the system ultimately will become an adaptive system that will use machine learning, historical data, the existing advancing situation in that building as an emergency progresses. Where do people run? Do they just run for their lives? Do they freeze? Do they collapse in a heap? We don't really know. Well, we kind of know, but how do you get that into a system? And as those things happen in an emergency situation, can the safety systems around use that technology to adapt that system to make that a safer outcome?
Well, I enjoyed your talk earlier, and you made it quite personal when you closed by talking about what if you and your technology could save one life.
One life.
That's what people really need to think about with emergency lighting. It's very serious, and we're saving lives. You're saving lives. So,
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.